and this is still true to this day, people talk about Deep Space Nine being a dark show. Mm-hmm. And I wondered, what's your take on hearing that criticism of the show and the set of, being dark? Is that something you set out to achieve, or is that something that you feel is not rightfully placed?
Well, I mean, I know that as far as the designs of the show, it was all much darker. There was, dark plum colors with like a Roman gold, and it was elegant, but everything was dark, and there was architecture that was almost haunted house-like in a way. But I think that we all thought that the show was going to be darker in tone. It pretty much was still what they were doing in that brand of Star Trek, like Next Generation. The darkness came in the design of the sets, but they never went and shot it. It was never shot that way, I think that we expected it to be much darker than it was actually done. It was still that bright and shiny universe in this kind of strange, creepy space station, which we never got to. We had ideas in the art department that there would be areas of that station that hadn't even been opened yet, that a lot of it was abandoned, and O'Brien, it would be like going spelunking in caves. He would go and find areas that no one had seen, that had been sealed off, for like 30 years. We thought that the station would be played a little more like a haunted house, I guess. I love Deep Space Nine, and I think it looks fantastic. The design work to go from Next Generation to Deep Space Nine, mm-hmm. with that, they contrast each other really well. It really is. The first time I'll never forget, me and Denise Okuda walking through, was the promenade was it on 18? I can't remember, but it was totally empty. They were just about to start laying out the floor where everything was going to go, and there was nothing there. There was a pigeon walking through the stage. I remember me and Denise, we were saying, remember this? It
was probably Odo.
There was an episode where I think Odo was sick, and they had to put him in some kind of device, like a stasis device. And I literally stole Dorothy's bread machine. He is Odo, right?
Okay.
Odo. But, we used to do a lot of amazing stuff with graphic tape. We would tape up sets. When a set was finished and it was painted, me and Denise and Mike and maybe Anthony Fredrickson we'd have a tape caddy that had all kinds of different widths of black and gold and silver and tape, and go down, and we could put like $10,000 more into that set just with graphic tape by making panels and breaking. If you've got a wall that's got nothing going on, you could go and make something out of that wall that's really cool. We did labels and stickers and things, and I'm sure that Sirac probably remembers some of the Starfleet. We call them capsule labels. They were these labels about like, what do you have? See, that's living with Doug. See, I could just reach over and find a couple.
There they are.
Wow.
But they used to have.
Can you hold those up to the camera for a little longer?
These are really early ones. They're backwards.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Yes. No,
they're right.
Now the real early ones just had numbers down here.
Mm-hmm.
But one day Mike decided to put a few gags in them, and people on stage loved them. And I remember when Entertainment Weekly did an article on Next Generation, they made a special point of showing those labels, and they would say things like, "You don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the mask on the old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with
Jim." That's the one.
Yeah, or 186,000 miles per second. It's not just a good idea; it's the law. Stuff like that.
Yes, and I remember also reading on the panels that you would press in the control rooms. There would be names of people that I recognized. So I would say, hey, I know this. I know these people.
You know something? I apologized to you for this many years ago, and it was not to diminish you in any way. It's just that, let's face it, when you first got there, you were just the kid, you know. You grew into being practically an adult on that show, and your power as your character really grew.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I mostly for the Starfleet stuff, it was mostly initials from people from the Next Generation, because a lot of those buttons were brought over from Next Generation. The Starfleet stuff was, and your initials weren't on there, and you came up to the art department.
Yes, I did.
I never forgot the embarrassment. I was so embarrassed. I fixed it. I made sure that there were plenty of your initials on there, but I have to tell you, I was so embarrassed about that, and I think about it regularly. I wasn't going to bring it up unless you did. But yeah, so I never funny. Forgot that. I never forgot that. Oh my God, what did I do? He'll hate me.
No, I didn't hate you, but I did go up there, and actually big fans, to you guys up there, and Okuda obviously just really welcoming and showing me around, and it was like a kid in candy shop over there. If you like to see these kinds of things being made and how it's done, that's where to go.
Well, the art department was always a fun, welcoming place. Mm-hmm. I loved my time there, and I worked 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I guess 11 years in art department with Herman and Mike and Denise and Johnny Eves, and we were laughing all the time. I mean, and the practical jokes were like never ending. I mean, I remember that John Eves, one of our illustrators, who's a nut, came in extra early, and Fritz Zimmerman, who sat across from John Eves, and those guys were always pulling pranks on each other. John came in at like 4 a.m. and climbed up, and you know how there's those like kind of foam ceiling panels overhead? They're squares. Took one of them and he hinged it on one side, and he had a monofilament line that he ran to it. When he yanked it, the panel would swing down. So what he did was he made a box out of cardboard up inside that, where it opened up, and got like a 50-pound bag of popcorn and filled it up with like 50 pounds of popcorn up there. And then Fritz is sitting at his desk working. He yanked that cord and the things, and all this popcorn comes down. And another good example, and John was like terrible. Right? He got a piece of Limburger cheese, like the stinkingest cheese you could find. And he went to Fritz's desk, and he took all of Fritz's drafting pencils and pushed them through the cheese, and then put it back on his desk. And Fritz is like working away, and he's going. Oh my God, we had some fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good one.
You can't beat that one. I guess you guys were working hard in there.
Yeah, boy, oh
we
boy.
We were, But it's kind of like the crazier things get, the sillier you have to become,
Yeah.
Because if you can't laugh, then you're really in trouble. You got to find the funny in everything. And I always found for myself that whether it was makeup or visual effects or whatever, the later or the greater the pressure or as screwed up as things would get, the funnier they got. I mean, we would just be laughing our asses off because it was so great, so insane,
Yeah, I meant to ask you about that. There's a lot of pressures for all of us, to perform and get it right. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on you guys to get things done the way they want it done. Was there a moment where you were like, this is too much for me, or this is just like, what are we going to do? Did you ever find those kinds of moments?
I've had so many moments like that. I mean, and look, I'm laughing about it now. And I was, even the truth is that even as things were falling, down around your shoulders, that I would still be laughing and finding jokes, about what was going on. If you get panicky, you're going to lose it. You won't figure it out, and especially if you're a makeup artist, because you can hold up camera as a makeup artist. If you hold up camera for half an hour, that's a lot of money. You could get in a lot of trouble. With the pressures are great for art department and visual effects, but and you're trying to get things done under real tight deadlines. I mean, there were Battlestar Galacticas where we delivered the last visual effects shot the morning that the satellite uplink happened, and they watched it on television that morning.
Yikes.
But it's still not like, all due respect to the first AD and the second AD, and they don't want you to screw up. They don't want something to go wrong. But if you give them something, they will happily put that on their report that makeup held up camera, because they know they're going to fall behind. So they need to say, well, makeup held us up an hour. So as much as they might be your friend and they want you to do a good job, if you give them something good to put on their report, they're going to take it. It's up to you to make sure that things like that never happen. I mean, oh God, there was one time, and it's visual effects oriented because things would overlap. If you're in the arts department, sometimes you would get involved with visual effects stuff. We had an episode of Enterprise where Dan Curry wanted to do a shot, the visual effects supervisor, up above looking down into these, it was a little village in a rocky recess that that had all these paths and but basically he wanted to shoot our characters looking down on them in this little village. So they were going to have to build a platform on stage and put the camera up there. Now, an episode before that, we had a show where the guys had to go on the hull of the NX Enterprise. And I worked with Dan Curry to set up all the shots in a virtual camera. And he could get the shots, and I could say, okay, camera's off the ground 12 feet. It's pitched, about 15 feet negative and blah, blah, blah. And then he could go to stage, shoot the guys using all of that, take them back to the visual effects house, and they could take the model of the ship. I could give them the files that I set up, and they're on their way. So he wanted to do it on this episode where we had this little village happening. I set up everything with him sitting right there, all the information. The next day, he's down on stage with the second unit, and nothing is lining up. Nothing's lining up. And I get called to stage. And I'm there, and Dan basically, Dan, if you're listening, he pretty much threw me under the bus. It was up to me to work it out. He just went off and, was chatting with somebody else. And I had all these people around me, the DP, the director, everybody like this at me. And that can be really overwhelming. And you're like, what the fuck? I'm going to lose. I didn't think I was going to lose my job or anything, but I knew that I had to get myself out of this. And, I had been through quite a bit in my life working on film and television shows. And I just snapped in realizing that I got to act like I'm in charge. Once I do that, they'll fall right in line. I guarantee it. And I just, I turned around and said, look, guys, we can just try to figure out who's to blame here, or we can make it work. What I want you to do is pick up this platform and move it back 10 feet for me. And they just as soon as you tell them what to do, they're incredible. The crew's amazing.
Yeah.
But up until then, they're all like, yeah, you did it, all trying to figure out who screwed it up. Who screwed it up isn't important. We got to get the shot. What do we do now to make this work? And if you crumble, you're doomed. You have to take charge. And once you take charge, they will all fall in to do anything that you need them to do. And that was one moment I remember. I had some, my God, so many of them. One of the things I remember was when I was doing makeup on Next Generation, most of the makeup artists would just put the makeup on people and then they go and sit, have a cup of coffee or something like that. But, I came from my own makeup company. We did You know, I had just come from Dick Tracy. We did all those faces on Dick Tracy. And it was my habit to look through the camera lens. I want to see what the DP sees. I don't want to look at it from over here. I want to know exactly what he's seeing through his camera. And the first time I did that, everyone was shocked. But because I had just come from a big picture with Warren Beatty, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, whatever you want. And I remember Mike Westmore telling me later, thanking me, you know, that I did that because I'm making him look good. You know,
and you were looking for makeup, right? To see if there was any imperfections or anything that you needed to touch.
Well, the thing is, you know, when you're doing appliances, there's edges that have to blend off. Not everybody is really good at blending an edge who's a makeup artist. Not every foam latex appliance that comes out of a mold has a good edge on it. Sometimes those things were baked the night before and they come out and the edges suck. So it's like, now what are you going to do? Well, you're going to have to pull out every trick in the book to blend those things in. Back then on DS9 or Next Generation, whatever you saw on screen is what it looked like on stage. If there was a bad edge and the DP isn't going to... See, the thing is, it's a camera trick. The DP has to help you. I've had conversations with DPs before where they're like, well, it's not my fault if there's an edge there. I'm like, yeah, but you could put a light over here and fill in that edge and no one will ever see it. And if you have a good DP, they'll do it for you. Or you'll get someone who's a diva who says, I'm the author of the cinematography and I don't listen to you. You know, I'm in charge. You know, there's egos sometimes that you have to deal with.
Sounds like they're all Italian too.
Well, this guy was, who I'm making fun of here is Vittorio Storaro. When we were on Dick Tracy, he spent a long time thinking about how he was going to light Dick Tracy. The thing was that he didn't know enough about makeup to realize what certain kinds of light will do to an appliance. It's not skin. I mean, now there's a piece that you could make silicone appliances where light actually passes through them and diffuses through them, which is the way skin is. When you're using foam latex and you've got a layer of paint on it, the light is hitting it and it's going, pow! It's not diffusing out. So it's a camera trick. The DP can make that happen for you. Today, a bad edge is no big deal. If there's something wrong in the makeup that's looking bad, you could have post fix it now. They could bring it into a program like After Effects and blend that edge off in post. You couldn't do that back then. If it was a bad edge, it was a bad edge, and it was like, hello, I'm an edge. You know? But now, like for instance, in the Avengers, you've got a character Vision. I don't know if you remember Vision.
Yeah.
That if you look at the green screen stuff that they shot of him, the makeup is only 60% of it. They're going to take it the rest of the way in post by having CG headpieces and stuff like that. And you can make it like a whisper, beautiful. So there's a big difference about the way makeup was back then and the way it is now. I mean, we were fixing makeup stuff on Battlestar Galactica. You know, there was notoriously bald caps are really difficult because this is one of the most mobile pieces on a human being. Plus, all day long, there's oils that come out of your skin or you're sweating and the glue will start to move and now you're getting funny creasing. And best bald cap I ever saw was done by Dick Smith on a Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. You know, where he shaves his head and he's got the mohawk?
Yeah.
Well, it looks great, right? That was a bald cap. But what Dick did is, and man, that guy was a genius. He shaved De Niro's head up to about here. That way he was able to glue to the bone, where the bone is, where nothing's flexing. And then he put an appliance over that. Nowadays, you could have I'm sure you've seen it plenty of times on television where someone turns their head and you get all these crazy wrinkles.
Yes.
Usually they'll put a collar on someone to try to hide that stuff. We did, there was a bald cap on Battlestar Galactica. What was her name? Mary. She was Madam President. How can I not remember her last name?
Yeah, it started with an M, I think, her last name too, possibly. Anyway,
I don't know.
the president, yeah.
Well, anyway, she had cancer, and there were a couple episodes where she had no hair. And so they did a bald cap, but there's only so much you could do. That might be a lot of hair that you have to hide. And so that her head will be like a light bulb. It'll be misshapen, But we used to be able to go in post and, stretch her head back into shape, frame at a time. It's a lot of work.
Wow.
But
the lady's name is Mary McDonald, by the way.